Howdy, everyone. So I'm back out in the shop, continuing to work on putting the fuselage back together so I can do the riveting. I don't remember where I left off. I make a video. It depends on what I'm working on and how important it is, I feel, to make a video about what I'm working on. So I may make a couple videos in a day. I may make one or two videos over a week or two time frame. So I think I've done a video kind of talking about my progress on the fuselage, but I don't remember exactly what I talked about. So some of this material might be a repeat. So bear with me as I try to walk through this a little bit further here. Obviously the fuselage is coming together. I've got the side skins back on, and for whatever reason, the second time around, these side skins went together a lot easier. Center section is obviously in place. Side skins are on. Like I said, they went on easier this time around, which was nice. I'd go up and over my sander here. So up front, I'm just going to go over some things that I've done that may or may not be a benefit, but here we go. So this cutout area here for the wing, the instructions get a little bit fuzzy because they recommend that in this whole location here and here you use a pop rivet, a squeezed rivet, not a squeezed rivet, but a pulled rivet, whatever you want to call it. They are LP4s. And you only need to leave this one open for the LP4. This one here, you can go ahead and put a standard rivet, a standard solid rivet in. So I've done that. This is the forward corner. So this is the forward fuselage here. That's the front firewall. So this whole location is the whole location that's forward of the opening. That one you want to leave open. Because the plate that's back here, I forget what it's called, but that plate gets pre-riveted to the skin before you put the skin on the airplane. So you have to do these few rivets. Make sure you leave that one open. The other ones immediately around the opening can be riveted. Here's the 1-inch hole on the side of the airplane for a fuel line. I've already got the grommet in place. On one of my videos, I talked about doing a 1-inch hole on the skin. Sorry for the lighting. A 1-inch hole on the skin, and then on the back plate that's on the inside, I only put a hole that was just barely large enough for the fuel line to fit through. Since then, I've changed my mind. So the hole on the skin and then the hole there on the inside, I've also enlarged to 1 inch. So both holes on both pieces are 1 inch in diameter. I gotta reset my camera. Stand by one. All right, there we go. Oh, let's see. Okay, one thing is with the firewall. Let me come around here. So the ribs of the firewall, or not the rib, the flanges of the firewall, mine were like really super wavy, and in this orientation, they were very wavy and almost flimsy, especially this long one across the bottom. It was just all over the place. So what I had done, I had come back and I went ahead and fluted in between all the holes around the flanges of the firewall, and that was great. It immediately pulled all the slop out of the flange, and it made it perfectly straight, and it stiffened it up a lot. So I would recommend that once you get everything disassembled after you've done all your match drilling, to go ahead, do your dimpling, and then come back and lightly flute between each hole, and that will pull all the slop out of the length of these flanges, and it really stiffens it up, and it really straightens it very nicely. So I was like super impressed that worked as well as it did. I can't think of anything else. Like I've said before, yeah, I had a lot of notes written on everything, and the way that I like to do it, rather than deburr everything at one shot and dimple everything at one shot and countersink everything at one shot, I don't like to work that way. So I was working one part at a time. So I did the center section. I brought the center section over, put it in place. I already had the longerons in place. And then at that point, I just went basically a piece at a time. So then I started to fit these individual pieces here. And as I did each piece, I looked at my written notes if there were any, did whatever those written notes told me to do, and then did my edge finishing, deburring, dimpling, countersinking, and then I put that part in. So I would do that for both sides. So I would do both of these, let's say, for the left and the right side, put them in, and then I'd move on to doing both of these, put them in, and then I'd move on to, the lower longerons, both sides, put them in, and then I moved on to the firewall. And that's where I had dimpled all this, fluted everything, put my holes in here, got that all done, put it in place. The gussets, these gussets here, those have to be pre-riveted only to the firewall bracket like you see here. Those kinds of notes are written in the instructions. Make sure you don't miss them, because if you get all this riveted, you won't be able to get that gusset in place. But that's how I worked. I just worked basically a piece at a time. That way I wasn't getting burned out on dimpling a bunch of holes or countersinking hundreds of holes or edge finishing 50 individual pieces at once. And that seemed to make it a little bit more tolerable for me. So again, let me see if I can get this. The gusset. That gusset gets pre-riveted here before you put the skins and everything else on. Okay? And then this piece here, that is not the back side of the skin. This is actually a separate piece of aluminum that has the hole in it. That gets pre-riveted to this bulkhead right here before that gets installed as an assembly. So like I said, those are pointed out. Those instructions are in the written documentation telling you to do that. So that's all I can think of at the moment. There are some locations like this here that I've marked with a marker. These do not get dimpled or countersunk, and you have to leave these open. You don't put any rivets in here. There's another heavy-duty piece of angle that will go in here ultimately that this gets riveted to. Again, all talked about in the written instructions. Just make sure you don't miss it. Read the instructions over and over and make sure that you're getting everything covered and in the proper order. So I believe that's it for now. That's all I can think of. I'm drawing a blank. So next up for me, I have the bottom forward skin here. I'm going to start working on that next. I think there are some locations like this, these 4 locations here and over there. These are actually bolts. I may go ahead and put that in now. Haven't decided. But the next big thing will be this, working on this skin here. Now, I could start riveting. I could crawl up underneath the fuselage back here and start working on all of these rivets. There's the floor baggage ribs that need to get riveted to this bulkhead up underneath. And then all of these rivets, all these clecos that you see here, all those rivets can get riveted in place. But my riveting partner at the moment, she's a little under the weather. She's been kind of ill for about 4 or 5 days now. She's coming around. She said she could probably start helping me today, but I don't want to push it. So I'm trying to do some of these other things before we get into the riveting, but I can start that riveting anytime. So Once she's better, we'll get at that. In the meantime, I'm going to pick away at some of these other little things. All right, I'm done. I'll talk to you later.